What's up, guys? Eric here, Driveline, world's okayest steering wheel holder, and checking in with you guys for a little bit of a conversation about my truck. I'm at the house going through a deep clean and just had a wild conversation a couple weeks ago, actually, with a friend of mine he has 13 trucks. He's got a pretty big company. I mean, for 13 trucks, it's a pretty big operation. He's got his own shop, own mechanics. He buys all of his trucks and trailers from Pedigree. Even though he's never driven for Prime, he's close to Prime and just goes and gets all his trucks and trailers from Pedigree, which is great right now because he's getting trailers for like $20,000 that have, you know, tons of warranty on the reefers and all that stuff. So he's just he's one of the rare individuals right now that's just really growing and making things happen in this industry.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
So we were in a conversation a couple weeks ago about trucks. And he either wants them at kind of the super cheap, you know, lots of miles where his mechanics who work on just Freightliners can work on them and keep them up and running and they pay virtually nothing for them. Or he wants really low miles, looking for good deals kind of thing, you know. And my truck is a little over 3 years old and has 315,000 miles on it. So it's a pretty low mile. This truck is just really not run team at all. I think it ran team for a total of maybe 3 months at most. And that was part of it was a training team. So it wasn't high miles because there was PSD and all that good stuff. And then part of it was a team on this truck that was running for us for a very short time. I think it was like a month. So it's pretty low miles. I wasn't thinking about this at all, and I'm not even sure I'm thinking about it now. But I thought for sure that in this market, there's no way I would ever hear a price that I would find intriguing. I think it was like a year ago where I said on YouTube, I said new truck prices will never come down. And there were some who were arguing with me, and of course, you know, and that's the case. New truck prices, even in this market, are up. Of course, the price of everything is up, but a brand new truck, like, you're going to pay more than you would have 2 years ago. Not a whole lot more, honestly, but definitely more. I think you're paying about 10 or 15,000 more for a brand new truck going through Success Leasing if you're buying a truck than you would have 2 years ago. So it's kind of in the 170, 175 range versus 160 that I paid for this truck. So new prices, I mean, that's just a new truck, but used prices are just, you know, in the gutter. I mean, used trucks are a dime a dozen. I feel like this truck would be a really good deal. It's been very well taken care of. But the consideration just wasn't there to sell it because I just didn't think that it would demand any kind of a reasonable price. But we were on the phone and he just kind of came out and said, he was asking me all these questions about the truck and I was telling him the mileage. The only real sort of black eye I think this truck might have, it's in great condition. I clean the shit out of it all the time. I take very good care of it. It's never been crashed. The only black eye it has is because I drive like primarily at night. My APU hours are way high. It's like he was dumbfounded when I said, I think my APU has like 8,300 hours on it. And he said that, he was like, that is real high. And I was like, yeah, but you have to realize that I drive almost exclusively at night. I mean, if I'm driving in daytime, I'm out of my element. I did something wrong, and it's just what I have to do for that day. But I drive almost exclusively at night, which means, as I've said before on this channel, that if it's hot, if it's like 85 or above in full sun, during my 10-hour break, my APU doesn't shut off because it just has to run AC all day because I'm in full sun while I'm sleeping. Whereas if you drive during the day, your APU is going to kick on and off all night, right? Mine doesn't. It's basically 7 days a week, at least 10 hours a day, my APU is running. So that's the only real black eye. I have taken care of. In fact, I've got to go get it serviced after my home time, but I've taken pretty good care of it. But that was really the only complaint was the APU is very high miles. So he's asking me all these questions, and he comes out and just says, "Hey, I'll give you $75K for it." I was like, "What? 75,000?" Now, some of you might be thinking, "Okay, 75,000's that's not a lot," but to me, like right now, you can find, I don't know, I feel like you can find trucks in comparison for 45, 50,000. I feel like. But I mean, this guy really knows trucks. He's got his own mechanics and everything. So he's telling me that he would pay me $75,000. In fact, he's in the market for a truck, for a newer, I say newer, 3 years, or, this one's still well under warranty. That number really caught me off guard because, like I said, I haven't been considering selling a truck at all. But that number really caught me off guard. That's a big number. 75,000 even in this market. And I guess it's just, like I said, because it's so well under warranty, because it only has 315,000 miles. That was interesting. So it makes me kind of think about, I get this question all the time. Should I lease purchase? All the time. And I say, now I've changed my position on some of it. So let me explain that. So when I first started with Prime, I was in the camp of doing standard leases because you're going to run the shit out of the truck, and at the end of the 3-year lease, you'll get your bonus, and then you get a brand new truck. So just rinse and repeat. You're always driving new equipment, and you're not really worrying about so much liability. You get breakdown pay, you get forgiven lease payments, you get all that stuff with a standard lease, and you get your bonus at the end of it. I was talking to Lyle of No Hippie Trucking and Transportation, I don't know, this is probably 4 years ago, and he started walking me through the math of it, and I was like, oh my God, like yes, you definitely should be, if you're going to be leasing and you're going to be solo, you should be lease purchase. And now that I've gone through years of having a private fleet and lease purchase and owning this truck, I fully stand by that. If you are solo driving freight for Prime and you've been leasing for 6 months to a year, if you can, man, I know it's tough because there's a deposit and everything, I firmly stand by that you should lease purchase. And the offer that I've gotten on this truck is exactly why. Because now I have two options. I can either sell this truck for 75 grand, and that's way more than the maybe 10 or 15,000 you might get at the end of the lease on a standard lease. And that's provided there's nothing wrong with the truck, and they're not going to nickel and dime you your bonus out of it. I think the biggest one I've heard is like 13 or 14,000. Some of you may have gotten more, some a lot less. But one option you're going to have is sell the asset itself at the end of the 3 years, which is worth way more than a lease completion bonus. The second option is you're still going to be able to run that truck for at least a minimum of 3 years, especially if it's not really high mileage. You're going to be able to run it most of that time probably under warranty. 3 years with no payments is an additional $150,000 roughly, depending on your home time and depending on whether or not something goes like really wrong with the truck. If you don't have a big expense transmission or something like that. roughly 150,000. Let's go lowball and even call it 140,000 just in not having payments for those additional 3 years that you run the truck. So that to me, it's not going to be a brand new truck. So you're not going to have another brand new truck for the next 3 years, but your net profit, your net gain is going to be so much higher on that additional 3 years. So basically, I mean, I've mathed the shit out of this. My two options are get 75,000 cash now or run this truck for 3 years with an additional roughly $150,000 in profit over the course of that 3 years. Compare either of those two options to your lease completion bonus. Now, granted, you would get 2 lease completion bonuses in that 6-year period. So you could be looking at, $20,000, $30,000 on 2 standard lease completion bonuses, but that doesn't compare to the 2 options you have on a lease completion. So, or on a lease purchase completion. So really for solo drivers, man, I'm like a firm believer in Ace Lease Purchase with Prime. Having gone through this for, quite a few years now, having my experience with it, it is a struggle at times. Don't get me wrong. It is a struggle at times because, like I said, you do not get breakdown pay. You don't get forgiven lease payments, 1 per year or whatever it is. And that you definitely feel that. But also when you go on home time, and this used to drive me crazy. And I talked about this a lot on YouTube. I actually did the math one time and it was pretty astronomical. When you go on home time, let's say you go home for a week and you continue to make that payment on a standard lease, you're giving that money to Prime in exchange for nothing. The truck is not producing for you. You don't have the asset. You're just making that payment in exchange for nothing. You're literally just giving that money away. But if you're in a lease purchase, even though you're not being productive that week, you're not running a truck that week, it's not generating revenue for you that week, the payment that you're making is still paying for the asset. So you're still getting something for that payment. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the payment feels less dirty on a week that even if you're broken down. If you're broken down for a week, yes, you're still making that payment, but that payment's still buying the asset for you. So those payments feel less dirty. So, again, I'm a firm believer. Now, on the flip side of it, teams. Especially in this market, I don't think, some of you may disagree and some of you may have success with it. This is just my opinion. I don't think lease purchase is good for team trucks. And it was my friend Lenny, who's a trainer at Prime, who got me on board with this because he trains and he just got a brand new standard lease truck. And you're just putting so many miles. You're beating that truck up and putting so many miles on it if you're running team. That by the end of the 3 years, when you have that truck paid off, your miles are just going to be asked. You're going to be towards the end of your warranty, and the value of the truck is just going to be so. If you end up at 3 years with a 500,000 or 600,000 mile truck, you can buy those trucks right now for $25,000. Not at Pedigree. Pedigree's still asking astronomical prices for them, but out on the market, you can buy them for $25,000. So it dramatically reduces the value of the asset to run it as a team truck. So it doesn't quite, and you're not going to really be able to run that 3 years without probably incurring some pretty high expenses after it's paid off. So that's kind of, now some of you may be teams that are in a lease purchase and it may have value for you. You may see good reasons for it, and good for you. I'm just telling you my opinion on now having gone through lease purchase, still having active lease purchase, and getting a cash offer for this truck. Going through that experience, I can say that as a solo, hands down, lease purchase beats standard lease any day of the week. Team, you really got to take a lot of things into consideration and know that you're going to have a grossly depreciated asset by the time that truck is paid off. So I don't know if the math really works out on a team truck for lease purchase, but as a solo truck, the math works out way better. So what am I going to do? So I got this $75,000 cash offer. I'm going to keep running the truck. You know, it's a different world when you don't have a truck payment on the truck you're driving. I still have truck payments, but not, you know, so that I'm not going to sell the truck. And, you know, it's an interesting position to be in, because now, you know, the farther you know, the more miles you put on the truck, the less it's going to be worth. But, you know, again, you look at that 3 years of no payments, and provided you take good care of the truck, you don't have any big, you know, big catastrophic events, and it's still under warranty, the truck is just going to be, it's going to carry on and profit far more than a standard lease bonus would be, and far more than what you would be able to sell it for. And I would still have the asset to sell at the end of the extra 3 years if I run it for 3 more years. It's not going to command the $75,000 it could get right now, but it still could get me $25,000 at the end of running it for 3 more years. So that's the direction that I'm going to go in. But I thought that was really interesting. You know, like I said, I didn't expect it. I wasn't asking for it. It wasn't really. It just kind of came out of the blue. It was like, whoa, okay, $75K. That's a big number. But I'm kind of just enjoying the idea of not having to make a truck payment. That to me it's more of a long-term thing than, you know, because on the short term, well, then what do? Then I don't have this truck. So that's kind of the way I'm going. So would love to know your thoughts on it. And I know some of you will be like, oh yeah, Prime's lease purchase program, such a scam. Okay. You know, the vast majority of the people who are saying lease purchase with Prime is a scam haven't completed a lease purchase. You know, the people who say that it's not a scam are the people who've completed lease purchases. And that's who you should trust. You should trust the opinion of people who've gone through the whole process, know the ins and out of the whole process, and know the fruit that comes from completing a lease purchase. They're the ones that are going to tell you the truth. I can't think of anyone who's completed a lease purchase with Prime who owns their truck who's now saying, oh, that was such a scam, that was such a ripoff. You're maybe in some rare case out there. I've not seen it, maybe. But really, and again, you know, at the end of the day, do your own research too. But I still stand by that Prime's lease purchase program is probably the best in the business. At least one of the best, one of the top 3. It's painful because the payments are so high. But as I always say, it's 3 years and you own your truck. I've gotten into this argument with many people before they say, well, my payment's only, you know, $1,500 or $2,000 a month versus your nearly $5,000 a month. Yeah, but you're financed for 5 or 6 years. 6 years in a lot of these cases. I've got a friend who has a loan right now it's a 6-year loan. So yeah, you're going to have a lower payment, but you got to make that payment for 6 years. We only make the payment for 3 years and the truck's paid off. So if you can just grit your teeth and get through it for that 3 years, it's hands down it's a great thing. It's a great opportunity. And while I certainly have my complaints about it, I would stand by it and continue to stand by it. So, all right, guys, be safe, make good decisions, always drive to thrive. Talk to you all soon.